right, it's red. We are streaming.
Okay.
We're ready.
Go. All right. It is 7:01 p.m. on Monday, the 29th of June of 2026. And can I get a call to order of the meeting for Eastern Delaware County Joint Recreation District? Mr. Hennessy, can I get roll call, please?
Mr. Coy,
Here.
Miss Watson, Miss Greger, Miss Sabata,
Here.
and Mr. Muzakio. 5 present. We have a quorum.
Perfect. First item on the agenda is the meeting minutes from May 21st, 2026. Does the board have any discussion? Okay. Yeah. I'll second that.
All right, moved and seconded. Yeah, I was going to say, I think we have a correction we want to make.
Correct. That is true. There was a slight correction on who approved motion for resolution 2026-04. It would be Ms. Watson approving. I seconded it. Minor correction.
All right, so with that correction, Miss Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Coy,
Yes.
Miss Sabata,
Can I abstain since I was not present? Thank you.
Mr. Muzakio,
Yes.
and Miss Greger.
I abstain. I was not present either.
Well, we probably do need a
Nope.
fourth.
Well, I could do it. Yeah.
Thanks. All right, motion approved, 401. One abstention.
Next item on the agenda is public comment. Are there any visitors that would like to speak?
I don't know,
Okay.
Mayor, why don't you welcome people? Come on up here.
All right.
Come on, come in.
No?
You gave us a nice pen. Tell them about the pen.
All right, fair enough. We'll
All
move
right,
along.
All right.
Unfinished business. There are no stated items. Does the board have any discussion? Perfect. We'll move along. New business. And I think there's a slight change. Program and site layout updates. Is that correct? Perfect.
Yes,
Sounds great.
great.
Thanks everybody for having us here tonight. As a reminder, my name is Sophia Lanza. I'm the project manager for Pizzuti Solutions. We've been doing some of the work on the Eastern Delaware County Joint Rec District Community Center. And so tonight we have a few different topics to talk to you about. We'll have MSA and Katie Freeland going over some of the programming, just as a kind of reminder of where we left off back in April, but also showing some new graphics to help visualize what we're showing. And then we'll be going through some of the site criteria. So part of our engagement with phase 2 was to do site selection. So we are going to walk you through that process and hopefully get an approval for the criteria. So I'll pass it off to Katie.
So again, as a reminder to the board, we won't be projecting the slides, but that you do have those in front of you in the packet that she'll be walking through both of them. Yeah, there you go. Great, thank you.
All right. So again, Katie Freeland with MSA Design. We're just going to give you kind of a quick update of what we have been working on in the background in terms of the program of the building. So again, not just the amenities that are going into the building, things that are proposed. The first slide that I will direct you to is the one that says Program April 2026 Programming Diagram. So just as a reminder, that is where we left things off after our series of community engagement sessions. Throughout that a series of workshops, we really focused on getting feedback from the community as well as you all on the types of spaces that might be desirable in this future community recreation center. And then the diagram was really capturing kind of what those spaces could be in a diagrammatic way. We left things off with a building that was approximately 90,000 square feet. with about 10% of expansion that was dashed in on there, just understanding there are still many decisions to be made and many things to be validated. At that time, we were also considering a potential partner space. So square footage of that really wasn't very well vetted or necessarily discussed, but for the sake of the diagram, that was about 25,000 square feet. So if you go to the next program diagram, ultimately the intention of this is once we get through the site selection criteria, we will then be providing a more developed floor plan and site plan for each of the sites that are under consideration. And the goal of that is really to help you all understand kind of the impact of that site as it means to the building and then the surrounding amenities associated with that. As part of that, we went ahead and started developing, and this is sort of just a test program, a test floor plan of what that might look like. So the intention is once some of these sites are under consideration, we will then use this kind of footprint modified to reflect the sites that are being discussed. So in this particular version of a plan, and it is starting to look a little bit more like a plan, but please keep in mind this is just sort of a working document and will change as we move forward. We are continuing to show a building footprint of about 90,000 square feet. On this particular one, we were starting to suggest there might be a mezzanine space. One of the programming elements that was discussed was an elevated running or walking track that might be above the gym space. So in this particular footprint, it started to make sense maybe putting some fitness space up there as well. This is showing programming rooms, a fitness floor. We are starting to diagrammatically show kind of what I would say focus maybe more on the amount of fitness equipment that could fit in a fitness floor of that size, not necessarily the type of equipment. This is really just to kind of help you understand scale of the space. So again, this ended up about a 90,000 square foot footprint with a 4,000 square foot mezzanine. We are not necessarily building an additional expansion space or that partner space in this diagram, but certainly can do so as we start to test fit some of the sites moving forward. In terms of continuing vetting and refinement of the program, I would ask you as we just continue all of the other discussions and points that we will continue to explore with you throughout this process. One, of course, your ongoing feedback will be considered and put into whatever that developed program will be. So if you have any ideas, questions, considerations, please make sure that you're bringing those up. There will be some operational considerations that we will want to make sure the programming document kind of follows along with that process. And I will just give you a couple for instances. If you ultimately decide from an operational standpoint, you are maybe building out a more robust operational plan and would like to offer, a large series of types of fitness classes, art classes, community interest classes, we might start to suggest that we have more of those kind of multi-use types of spaces reflected in the program. If you ultimately are starting to lean towards something that is more streamlined and it's operational, and maybe some of those types of flexible spaces aren't as desired, we may pull back some of those types of spaces. I know a competition pool has been requested. That is something that would start to then have an operational aspect on it. So right now for the diagram, we are showing just a 25-meter pool. We're not showing a 50-meter pool, but certainly I think there is space in there where something like that could start to layer in. Just again, when you start talking about operation and operating something that could be used more from a competitive swim standpoint, there is impact on the use of that for your community members. Does that want to be in the same space as the other aquatics? There's a lot of kind of conversation that we can continue to have about that moving forward. But for sort of a base level set as we study the sites, this is kind of where we landed at the end of the first phase of this engagement. We have taken the liberty to add in some kind of ancillary and accessory support pieces, just as we've developed it, some office space, restrooms, storage, those types of things that we think would naturally kind of follow along the program that was developed. We have not altered kind of the base set of program substantially from where we left things off. So any questions on that before I flip to the next one? Okay. And then the last diagram here in your packet is a site diagram. So what we did for this one, and again, you'll see kind of this format translated to the sites that will ultimately be considered. But for the sake of this exercise, we are just showing a generic 7-acre box. That's what that dashed blue line is around that. We are showing that building footprint from the previous slide, so that 90,000 square foot building footprint. And then we are showing the associated parking spots for a building of that size sitting on that footprint. So again, for the sake of this, I took Sunbury's zoning code. They are requiring 200 spots for one spot for every 200 square feet of exercise space. So as we refine the program, that number might shift a little bit, just depending on what we're categorizing and what's being provided in terms of exercise space. But for this one, it ended up about 390 spaces. You can see that that pretty much fills a 7-acre site when we get the associated parking with that. Certainly, there are opportunities. We can start looking at a multi-story building. We can really be much more selective about what we classify as exercise space and really kind of drill down to what that really means and make sure that we're not over parking the site. But just to get you sort of a base level understanding of how that might look on a generic site, we thought this might be helpful as you're going through the selection criteria matrix this evening.
I do have a question.
Mhm.
So I know one of the things we talked about needed some additional work was, outdoor field space.
Mhm.
Do we have any rough ideas of what acreage we'd be looking at?
We can provide that. I think one of the things, and I think we'll probably talk about it when we get into the site selection, I believe it was left with studying the sites, seeing what the opportunities of sites have for that type of expansion, but not necessarily build that in today into this criteria. So
Yeah,
it might be a little bit of a back and forth. I guess that's not a great answer, but it'll be a little bit of back and forth once we get the sites and we understand what they're what is available, and then we can start giving you some idea of how that might lay out. But certainly we could pull together an acreage of kind of a base level outdoor, practice space, what that could look like as well.
Yeah, and what you just said was my understanding as well, but I was just trying to gauge in, my mind's eye, if we were to find a site that could accommodate both, like what rough acreage would look like, but I understand what you're saying.
Any other questions on that? All right. Well, you'll see more of these types of diagrams again moving forward. I think once we start applying that to the site, obviously that conversation will evolve and develop. But if you have any other thoughts about what we've sort of thrown into that base understanding, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.
With the outdoor fields, I do think that so what Katie has said is where we're leaving off. I know that internally we've been thinking about the size of Bevelheimer Park for an outdoor facility, which is about 140 acres. So with the site selection, we do have it as a consideration for like expansion space for potentially outdoor fields. So it is something that we're considering, but we're not limiting ourselves to only looking at sites that would accommodate for 140 acres, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and so when you say 140 acres, is that like all their various zones? Because they have like the yellow zone and the, okay.
Yeah. Yes. So I'll go ahead and get started with a little bit of the site evaluation process. So our team over the past few weeks has been working to compile a list of potential sites. So these are both publicly owned. There are some sites that are for sale, and then also some additional sites that we're looking at that aren't currently listed for sale, but perhaps could be owned by a community partner. So that's something that we're considering. We have about 15 sites right now. We've compiled some site profiles for these, which include the size, owner, if they're for sale, what they are for sale acreage wise, what available utilities are near the site as well. So we are creating these site profiles for our team, but then also for your team, as we will have you kind of rank these sites. But our team will be going through and at least evaluating, likely it'll be more than 10, but we do say 10 sites right now. I think the sites that we have picked out are worth really looking at. So 10 to 15 is what we will be ranking as a project team. The highest ranking sites will be evaluated by the board members. So we are going to see where the natural break is, but this will likely be between 5 and 3 sites that we will have each member of the EDJRD board ranking. We will end up combining these scores with what we have included to get some top contenders. And so with this, we will then start to do a process of just reaching out to the owners, depending on if it's publicly owned, whether it is private or for sale. So to reiterate the process, we will be ranking 10 to 15 sites as a project team. From there, we would like to schedule a meeting with the EDJRD board, likely perhaps a 2-hour session. I know that there's been discussion on what needs to be done. So I know that there has been desire to do a ranking by all of the EDJRD board members. So if we need to do an executive session or if there's some type of committee that we need to form, then we're happy to do that. But I think that it would be worth having all members rank the sites. And for this, we'll provide you with those site profiles that we are creating, but then also we will be available to answer any questions so that we can move through the rankings together. We think that having everyone in one room would be helpful to really create a consistency across scoring. So we wouldn't want, the mindset to shift a little bit after you take some time to really reevaluate. So having it in one session with everyone in our team available for questions, we think is going to be the best option. That's what we would recommend. I've included a schedule. I believe this is on slide 8 or 9. And this is just walking you through our process. So our team is going to take the next 2 weeks to review these sites and score them. And then we would like to meet with you relatively quickly. So ideally, either the 21st, 22nd, 29th, or 30th would be preferable. I know that sometimes everyone's schedule is busy, so if we need to adjust, we can do that. But just to throw out some dates so that we are staying on a tight timeline. And then we would like to have about 3.5 weeks to create a draft program and a draft recommendation to provide to the board. So we'll be taking all of the combined sites and creating a recommendation to provide to you, which will lay out all the rankings, where they scored, but then also kind of how to proceed depending on what the site is. So we'll be able to provide some recommendations on an acquisition or whatever the mechanism for acquiring a site would be. Recommendations obviously will depend on the owners. So if it's a public site, perhaps there's just a land lease, but also if it's private, perhaps there's option to purchase. So we'll go through what those recommendations are in a recommendation that we present. Are there any questions on the schedule or the process? Okay. If you go to the next slide, we have just 2 slides that are covering everything that's on our site evaluation matrix. You can see what items are weighted at. So all of these criteria will be ranked 0 through 10. And then obviously the score will be impacted by whatever the weight is. So these are about weighted 1 through 10. I believe the highest that we might have is just an 8 right now. But those are dependent on obviously what is more important. And for our team, we find that utilities and the site features are some of the more important. So those are heavily weighted. You can see that throughout the sections, but I'd like to go section by section, and I've included a little bit closer of a screenshot on the following slides just to see if there are any questions or comments. I'm happy to walk through each of them individually if that would be helpful. We have been working with Bernie, Todd, and Daryl during our bi-weekly meetings to discuss these criteria, what they're weighted. So we have reflected those conversations in this updated drawing.
Yeah, so if I could say, I know slides 9 and 10 are a little small, but they break out beginning on slide 11. So just So each individual section is just a little bit bigger and I think a little bit easier to read. So, yeah.
Are there any questions on the site features?
Oh, we're just going section by section, not line item by line.
We,
item?
if that's what you would
I
prefer,
just wanna
happy
make sure.
to. Yeah.
It's hard to read this. I know I have it here.
Okay.
Is this the same with the packet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that one's a
Yeah.
little thick.
Actually, the packet, you're right. The packet's easier to
Uh-huh.
read. Sorry about that. Makes sense. So yeah, on packet page 5, it begins.
I have them.
I think one of the questions I had, and it was one of my comments that I had, I wasn't able to make the meeting, but hopefully it made sense. Number 9 on the packet. Site is not designated as floodplain or wetland. I think, for me,
Mhm.
the building does not want to be involved at all.
Yeah.
The park, the path. Too worried about.
Mhm.
Now, the field space, we have it here at one of the elementary schools. Every time it rains, it floods. It's kind of tough for soccer and all the other sports. So I think a generic statement that the whole field, say we go for 150 acres.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
we could find some parcels for areas where we have the building and the path, for example. So I think for me, it's a little higher, like, because the floodplain introduces a lot of issues in the
Mhm.
building. So I'd rather not sink that money into the foundation.
No, that's a valid concern. I think there are also, I mean, remediation techniques that can be done for the wetland. But if it is a general consensus that it would rather not be something that the board worries about, then we can obviously bring it up higher. I think you'll notice that some of these are weighted the highest. So the first item, second, and third have a particularly high weighting. That's just because we find that'll be the easiest for the board to acquire. And so we do have everything else kind of based off of what we find to be the most important aspects. So we could always move that up. I think it would be worth our team taking a look at what else is weighted high if we do adjust.
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily need to make the whole thing generically higher or lower.
Mhm.
I would like to see it broken out
Okay.
into, if it's a 7 acres or 12 acres. If
Yeah.
it's a small lot and it's not in a floodplain, it goes up for me. But if it's 7 acres and it's mostly floodplain, it's not really viable.
Mhm.
But for walking paths, I think.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see it broken up, if possible.
Forget
Yeah.
where we landed on that, on the call. I didn't remember.
Yeah,
We
I
discussed-
think we ended up moving it up. I can't remember if we'd started at a 1 or 2,
Yeah.
but the idea was, yeah, that it needed to be more heavily weighted. I think because of your comments, Bernie. What we didn't do is we didn't differentiate between how much land, needs to be available for a building for it to be weighted higher. So I think what you were saying is that, let's just go back to kind of our sample, right? It's 7 acres, kind of the minimum site. Actually, 7 acres gets you parking and gets you the building. I guess probably your point is if you can get 7 acres of land that's out of a floodplain, that's higher. If you got 10 acres and 7 of it's out of the floodplain, that's good. The other 3 we can work with. Yeah. So yeah, and that, I think we were just struggling a little bit with how to kind of differentiate the
Mhm.
components, but maybe
Mhm.
maybe we go back and try to take a little bit of a stab at that. But we did try to increase the weight
Correct.
kind of to your point. So
Yeah, maybe it's a reference point. Maybe it's 7 acres, or maybe make it a little bit bigger, not the 10.
yeah, or maybe, so maybe the question, maybe it's something like at least 7 acres is outside the floodplain, right? And again, maybe that's a 5.
And we got to think towards expansion. Right now, if we buffer 10% in for
Right.
expansion, we realize, we grossly.
Yeah, so maybe it's at
I
least
don't
10
like-
acres.
Yeah, maybe 15.
Oh,
But it-
okay,
some-
keep going.
Some kind of.
Yeah.
breakdown would be helpful. in my-
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we talked about on the call that like item 1, 2, and 3 are kind of exclusive, so you're only giving points for one of those, the other two would end up being zero.
Yes.
Right,
Mhm.
those first three
Yeah.
are kind of unique like that, because you're only getting points for one of those.
Correct.
Just to mess that up.
Yeah, and then maybe Miss Watson, to your point, item number 4. So the site provides adequate usable area for the proposed current scope. Again, we're still working through what that scope is, but the point, I mean, this is weighted pretty high, right? It's basically the land's got to, meet the scope without being oversized. And at some point, as we get closer to the final scoring, you're probably going to have to start weighting in, whether or not it's got some outdoor recreational space. Does that fit the quote scope that we ultimately land on? Again, it may not be an exact number, and I think that's kind of where we landed. That I don't know that we're going to have an exact number of how much additional land, is adequate, but we'll know that it needs to be something, right? I think that's kind of the message that the public has said, that it should have some outdoor recreational value. And if we get a site that shows 30 acres,
Mhm.
that's going to score higher than one that has 12.
Right.
Because it's going to fit the scope better, in the long run. And the scope is a little more outdoor recreational space. But again, we'll score this as a unit, as Sophia said. So there's still be kind of a chance to talk through that
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
it relates to each site. And again, we'll probably end up doing that in executive session, so we don't end up, letting the landowner know, where the preference might be.
So with that first site features section, I think that this really is kind of like setting the whole scene for what site it is. So, discussion of property owner, what is the usable area? Is there significant regrading that needs to be done? These are all things that likely will kind of cost the board a little bit more money. So we're taking into consideration all of those things.
So 11, where it says existing site features and amenities contribute to the proposed development, are we talking about like utilities or?
So the existing site features, perhaps there is, I know some of the sites are near some of the baseball fields, like, Big Walnut High School. So, that would
Okay.
be a positive feature for the site. So items like that. But yes, utilities as well. Are there any additional questions on the site features?
For 12, a site does not require parcel assembly for multiple owners. I mean, to the extent that there is a parcel that requires like assembly for multiple owners, I mean, do we know what the process is for that? Or will we?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that it would really just be likely there's a zoning change, but then also just working with the local
Okay.
jurisdiction.
Forget to be correct. That was higher before.
I do think that it was a little bit higher, because now it is just at a 3. We are not anticipating much of a pushback with that.
Well, the next one.
Right. With zoning and legal, we did take some of these down a little bit, but we have most of these ranked at number 1. Zoning allows proposed use. Current zoning provides flexibility and potential uses of the property. No overlay districts requiring restrictions. And then no additional commission approvals are required. So, zoning is something that can be changed relatively easily working with your local jurisdiction, but it would save time and funds not having to rezone. So that was the thought process behind that being the highest weighted item. For number 17, I know that I believe Sunbury and Galena just have their own commissions. But then with Berkshire Township, you would have to go through the Delaware County commission, which might take a little bit more time. So we have that one on there specifically just because of the jurisdictional requirements. Any comments on zoning?
Nothing for me.
All right, for the liquor license availability, is that for like, flex space uses and?
Yeah,
Okay.
so future use, if you ever wanted to host events, I mean, we haven't really talked about event space or multi-purpose, but flex, future expansion, anything like that. I can move on to site context if there are no more questions regarding that. So with the site context, this is really about kind of the use of the site and what the space is. So we have a number of different items on here, but proposed community center would benefit from nearby and existing development, support services and amenities. I think we increased this one a little bit, but not by much. It is still weighted at a 4, so pretty moderate. I think comparing what is surrounding it, if it's in an industrial space, we would likely consider that site a little bit less than something that was perhaps in a residential area or closer to the schools. So making sure that the development fits within what is surrounding it, the context of the site, but then also existing adjacencies, providing visibility, support civic presence landmarks, so something that's maybe closer located to the downtown or the core of one of the EDJRD members. But then we also have community supports the proposed development and location. And so we found through our survey that there was an overwhelming amount of support, but I think depending on where this is located, if it's closer to residential, closer to schools, we found that those items or those locations were more highly requested. So a little bit more about where the general area for a site would be.
For number 18, it states there would be nearby existing development. What about any future upcoming development that is in the works? Are you taking that into account as well then, or?
Yeah, so we are taking that into account, especially the work that Rick did. The Urban Decision Group sites showed a lot of proposed development. So that is definitely something that we will be taking into consideration. Number 20 is proposed development will positively impact adjacent future development. So I think that we feel that is covered under that item. But with this grouping of criteria in particular, we'll be heavily relying on Rick's information and what he collected, especially in the maps that he made. So showing where it is located or where potential sites are located in context to proposed development of residential space, but also residential, and then also the other potential or other facilities surrounding the area.
Yeah, and I would just add a little bit related to that, item 31, under economic opportunities and benefits, the proposed development will encourage, adjacent private development that creates positive economic impact. So the first one seems to suggest that that something is about to happen. The other one maybe suggests that it could encourage that to happen. So.
Just for my understanding context, could you define community partners? I have something in mind. What does it mean to you?
So I think it is subjective. That certainly is the case, but also, there are a number of new residential developments going in. So perhaps if there was a desire to swap or donate some land so that there would be a community center nearby. So I think community partner could be the schools, it could be a private developer, it could be Village of Galena or Sunbury, a community partner in that aspect. So I think it's just an entity willing to work with our team.
Okay. I know my notes stated quite a bit higher, but that's why I wanted to clarify what community partner meant, how that worked together. I had it significantly higher, because I want this to be a community center. I don't want this to be in the corner of our jurisdiction
Mhm.
and nobody's around it. I need this to be part of everybody else.
Yeah.
Be a part of it.
Mhm.
That's why I think it's important to be cognizant of our community partners, who they are, what their plans are, talk to them, work with them, grow with them.
We do think that the community partners is a very important aspect to this development. I think, like I mentioned earlier, having utilities and the site context, some items in that weighted particularly higher. We wanted to make sure that it was all
Okay.
relative. I think that with community support of the development, but then also we have number 18 weighted relatively high. We think that these are going to positively impact just based on the community support.
One takeaway I had was there's several items that kind of feed into the same
Mhm.
goals.
Yeah.
Look at it as a whole. The
Right.
Site's gonna lose points on several different items.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So utilities, both of these are rated pretty highly. We only have 2 items. We find that it can be like relatively subjective when you're reviewing utilities, and we have had enough experience with projects where utilities are either not available on the site or located right relatively far away. And so we find that these are 2 very important aspects when considering a site. So if they're not already on the site or very closely adjacent, we find that 500 feet is a relatively acceptable distance, just based on previous experience for how much it would be to extend a utility, along with any tap and capacity fees usually. So if it is not adjacent or on the site itself, we still have an opportunity to provide some points rather than just saying there are no utilities available on the site. So if they're not on the site directly, they should be within 500 feet. And, very similarly, say 3 utilities are available. There's water, sewer, electric, but there's no power, or I'm sorry. There are some available utilities, but they're not all available. Then you could also rank that second option with that as well. And the profiles that we'll provide to you will have at least some information regarding utilities and what is available. So you won't have to find that out on your own. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, I've been told several times that sewer is the name of the game. when You're out here, so
Yeah.
that to me ranks a lot higher than the other ones.
Yes. Yeah.
We'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah. We have had a few projects up in this area that utilities are not available, and you'll find out either a little bit later than you would like to. So we're making sure that this is definitely a priority when we're reviewing these sites.
Now, when I went to the New Albany field house, they mentioned they planned everything to go on septic.
Yeah.
And in the process, they got sewer, so that's a big saving. So that's always another option to explore if it's worth it. But
So I'm the project manager for that as well. And we had started with septic, and then it was proving to be a little bit difficult to find a septic tank that is of that size that you would need for a facility that size. It is definitely possible, but it is just a more expensive option. Yeah.
yeah, they mentioned the cost was about half.
Mhm. There are additional facilities that you have to build too when you do septic. So
Okay.
it is always an option. It would not be our first choice, but it is an option. Moving on to access. So this has a few different aspects in it. There are areas of the EDC JRD that are relatively rural. So that brings down a few things. Obviously, access to the site. You might need to invest in some additional roadway improvements or any roadway, but also then that also takes down the potential users of the space. So that's another one that will kind of have multiple impacts and things leading to it. But with this list in particular, surrounding conditions and capacity of the roadway, of local or state traffic will support the development, making sure that it's not just, perhaps a gravel road. And then proposed location needs or requirements identified in the market analysis. So like what we were discussing with Rick and his proposed developments, or just location to surrounding residents. We also added item 30 to this list. Daryl mentioned that the Morpsey Greenway paths and trail plans could help pull in some potential shared use path options. And so making sure that there is still connection throughout the surrounding district. So making sure that we include that in connectors for shared use paths.
For access and tying in community partners, have there been any thought to connecting with the fire department to ask them if you had it your way, are there any shortcuts? Can we help with that somehow, one way or another? I'm just kind of thinking it because I think that was brought up by a resident that said, hey, the fire department would love to have a road here. They just can't pay for it. There's no reason to have a road here, but if that could help, why not?
Yeah.
Just a thought.
No,
And
that's
other partners as well.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. Any additional questions with access? So then our final is the economic development opportunities and benefits. So this is more about what the proposed development of the surrounding area could be. Location features are positive and marketable for events. Local incentives are available for development, potential for cost sharing. So very similar to what you just mentioned, potential cost sharing and extending a roadway. But then also development of the proposed site will not reduce future taxable property to prevent new private development. So they're similar to what we talked about earlier. Having a site that would be in the middle of an industrial space might not be the best location context wise, but also then economic development wise for the EDJRD members. So taking some consideration into that, obviously, I think that there are plenty of very desirable sites that we are looking at right now. So I don't really see that as an issue, but it is something that we'll consider, making sure that the taxable revenue is not taken away from the jurisdictions. We also considered the positive and marketable area. And when we were thinking about this, we talked about the location and using urban decision groups, site work, and taking that into consideration. And we find that, it will likely be positive and marketable for the community no matter where it is, likely. So we felt comfortable with, I think we brought it up maybe 1 or 2 points, not a large amount, but we felt that this would make it, wherever the site is going to be, really would make it marketable for community use or also just community development.
So you're referencing number 32, is that correct? Facilities, location, features are.
Yes.
It's still at 1. Mentioned it went up.
I'll have to go back and look at my notes,
Yeah.
but perhaps it's
Double
supposed to be a
check that,
2.
yeah. Good. Yeah, from my perspective, if let's say that one be positive and remarkable is only ranked a 1. And if it's negative and not marketable, it's a 0. That's 1 point in the big scheme. I think that should be quite higher from my perspective. And I think it will with all of this
Mhm.
cumulative ranking.
Are there any questions about the criteria that we mentioned or discussed? I think that as far as next steps, if there is an approval from the board, then we will start our review as quickly as possible so that we can get it into that, so that we can schedule a meeting to review with the EDJRD board as well.
Do you need approval tonight to keep to this schedule? Slide 8.
I think that that would be likely the best. Obviously, we can wait, but that just would push the schedule back. And if it's a discussion that needs to be had offline, then or just in an executive session with your team, that's okay. But if it needs to wait until another board meeting, then obviously it will just impact the schedule.
Correct. Yeah. Waiting a whole month would be too long.
Yeah.
Altogether. I just want to make sure that the other board members here have a chance to kind of sit, dissect, and absorb. Because there's a lot here. And I guess the one question I also have is, these are good. Then we get sites back and we're like, oh, this is what the ranking was. We still have the latitude to use our judgment.
Yeah.
Just because it rated high doesn't mean that's what we have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
If I can discuss, wetlands.
Yes.
How do we deal with that if we were to?
Yeah, so I was writing down, I mean, maybe if we change the way it's written, so again, maybe at least 10 acres is outside of the floodplain. You know, that way, you know, you've got a 90,000 square foot building that you
Mhm.
know fits comfortably in the space. You know, maybe that, it's, so again, it's sort of, and if something comes in that's less than that, you know, it's scoring low and it's weighting factor. I mean, I guess by scoring low, the weighting factor doesn't lift it up any, but if it's at least 10 acres, it's outside the floodplain and it meets, you know, the building footprint issue, scores high on that front, it gets weighted a court 3, 4, whatever the number might be. I mean, maybe that's a way to at least keep them moving in the evaluation. And then when we get together as a group, we can sort through if anybody's sort of on the margins.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm struggling with is that this is all geared to the site and the building. We have 2 simultaneous paths where we have site building and potentially outside area. So just trying to see how to balance that in a criteria like this. So if we could change number 9 to state whether it's 10 acres, whether it's 50, whatever it may be, it's something that gives us a little bit of buffer. Then I think.
I'm sorry, Todd, what did you say?
Todd.
I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I said, I think we did that, but we changed. You guys think that adequately captures our concern?
For the floodplain,
Yeah.
I would say so.
I think it is gonna hit on some other areas too.
I would say that
Yeah.
the weighting is reasonable.
And we have, we really think, looking at it.
That's the hard part. We're setting criteria that we don't know anything about.
I feel like once you see the site now, it usually goes, it's like, I think what I would recommend, that don't get too hung up on, some of these sites, it's like, trying to find into a site, got all the site, all this other criteria, but it might get a little small. You're gonna look at and say, what can you stack with the building? I think I like your question, but we see your judgment. Yeah. So your judgment. So it's a question we can explore, have to
Mhm.
be creative with a site that meets a whole lot of criteria, no matter how it's framed. That might start to make a lot of sense. And some of that can be how we put the building together. So I think this is getting to a point of waiting.
Mhm.
Sites out there, where let's 5 of them will rise up. And what you might find is after we explore those 5, you might have to go back and
Mhm.
grab another one, go forward. Because by exploring this 5, one that's sitting back here might start to look a little bit better for some other reasons.
Yeah.
It'll come together.
Okay.
I think it's like major driver. That big sewer water. Sewer water. This
Yeah.
kind of narrows us down. And start looking at,
Yeah. And as we have your team rank them, I think especially your priorities as a board and what the site is are going to come into play more than just our like technical expertise. What you want out of the building and out of the program is going to be something that's incredibly important. And it might change and differ from what our rankings are, but that's why we have you included in those as well.
So really, this is just a guide to help us think through everything that we want to think. But the goal at the end of the day is not to say this scored, you know, 123 and that was 124. So we're going with 124.
I would not find just
Yeah.
prioritize sites a little bit more,
Mhm.
focus on the top 5, and it allows us to go down a little deeper versus go down a little bit.
Yeah.
So, you know, some are going to be obvious. Yeah. So we don't really hard time on. So it really just allows things to really, and allow the broad discussion about priority costs. I would say, get your site, you can hear what it's like. If you need to hear the conversation, you'll feel the floodplain, well, you have to force it. But I think we go there, us, go back to history, how often that was. Quite often. It's spring, the ball. So we'll play through the ball, dry. So we gotta go back and make sure that. I can build it and whatever down there. Specific criteria really allow the effort. Sites.
Thank you. Yep. All right, move forward.
So,
Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, so we do have a motion to approve the criteria. So maybe what I'm hearing is, again, we're gonna amend the language in item number 3. You know, to say it, I don't know, is it 10 or 15? I don't, give me a number. Number 9, I'm sorry.
Number 9.
Number 9. Yeah, we did 3, sorry. At least, you know, 10 acres is outside the floodplain, at least 15 acres.
I'd err on the side of 15.
I'm okay with that. Okay. So then with that change, like I said, there's a motion to basically then accept the criteria, allow them to do their ranking, then we'll come back as a board, see the top, you know, whatever 5, 3, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever that number looks like. We'll talk about it in an executive session and we'll come out, I think, with a good sense of which ones we think are top of the list. And then they'll go out and start seeing if there's a way to secure the site. I mean, there's also some site. You got to fit the site too. Yeah, I guess we wouldn't secure the site right away. We got to make sure it fits. So So is there a
I'll-
motion? Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
I will second.
Resolution 05. So moved by Ms. Watson, seconded by Mr. Coy. All right, Miss Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Coy,
Yes.
Ms. Gregor,
Yes.
Mr. Muzakio,
Yes.
Ms. Sabata.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0. Great, thanks.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda. So we did resolution 2026-05. Next would be 2026 budget update.
I'm sorry, I hate to do this, but could we maybe go back to the meeting minutes? Jody, if you could.
Something real quick.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I was not present on May 7th, but it said on here that the meeting was May 21st on Sunday. But I think we didn't have a forum, it was Tuesday. So that's where I was confused earlier. So I think Sunday call to order needs to be. What next? Thursday?
So Sunday was,
Thursday?
Sunday the 17th was the
Sunday the
meeting.
17th, but I
And then Thursday, the 21st.
Thursday.
So the date and the
So-
day are mixed up.
I think so. I don't know. I just know I had field day on the 18th, so Sunday I was setting up. That's like, I guess, like Sunday was.
Yeah, so these,
So-
Yeah.
So I think page 2 of the materials, the
Right.
second line, it should say Thursday, May 21st.
Thursday. Good catch.
well,
Yeah,
But-
that was all Jody.
but we,
And then, because we had approved the May 17th meeting minutes, which is reflected in our minutes. So yeah, I think if we just changed Sunday to Thursday, we got it. So I guess,
I'm sorry. I see where you are.
Yeah.
I was down under the minutes. Yes, Thursday. Got it.
Thursday, May 21st.
All right, why don't we reapprove the minutes then with that correction? So we'll say amended minutes. So we've got 2 amendments. We've got the date as in Thursday, May 21. And we've got then the move and approval of resolution 04, which we get corrected in the first minutes. So we have a motion to approve
will.
the,
I'll second.
so moved by Ms. Greiger, second by Ms. Watson. All right, Ms. Greiger.
Yeah.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Sabata,
Yes.
Mr. Muzakio,
Yes.
and Mr. Coy.
Yes.
5 yeas, motion approved. Great, thank you. All right, the only other item in the agenda, just a snapshot of where we are with respect to the budget. So at the last meeting, we amended the budget, so you see the amended budget on packet page 19. As we talked about, we will have to get some funding in place for accounting and audit purposes. We had talked about maybe going back to the jurisdictions and asking for the funds that were not spent in 2025. Would they be willing to appropriate those moving forward? That ended up being a little short of $10,000. So the way to kind of think about that, Sunbury would be at 46.5% of that. Berkshire 43.9, Galena at 9.7. I'll put that together for the next meeting so we know the exact amounts that we're requesting. I will say that Sunbury has already approved an amendment allowing for that additional appropriation. So we've at least secured that, but I'll get the exact numbers and bring those back and we'll get that cleaned up. So other than that, that is it on the budget.
Next item is information. Any discussion? Then we go to next meeting before we adjourn.
So
In the schedule, you had suggested some dates. Sophia, you want to start by throwing those out again?
Yeah,
Yeah, so, the 20th, 21st, 22nd, or the 29th, 30th.
I'm sorry, was the 20th one of them or was it the 21st and 22nd? 21st.
All right, so let's see.
21st, 23rd.
So the 21st is a Tuesday.
Would we be like, since it's probably a 2-hour meeting, would we be looking to start at what, 6? That works.
So I can't be in person on the first two, but I could on the second two. I could probably do virtual on the first two, for the 21st and 22nd. I'm gonna be traveling, so
I can do any of those dates.
it would be better for me if we could do it on the 29th and 30th, but if more people cannot do that.
I can do the 30th.
You could do the 30th, okay.
all four is fine.
That's great.
We'll
I'm the-
accommodate
I'm
your
the
schedule
holdup.
here.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
I'm the holdup.
So we're
Okay.
going for Thursday, 30th.
At 6 p.m.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Where?
All right, we want to move that back to Sunbury then, because I think Sunbury would be next in the rotation. If
Okay.
we want to keep.
Sunbury.
All right. July 30, 6 p.m. Sunbury.
And just for planning purposes, will we be getting like a packet before that meeting to start looking through?
Yeah. so
Okay,
we'll-
that-
we'll try to pack it up. But then we can review and explore all together. So if you like, for a while, or not.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
Yeah, so on that, I'll need to talk to Becky just a little bit about the documents, just to make sure we can protect those a little bit. So I've got a little bit of work to do on that. So. Okay.
Perfect.
That's it.
And I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, moved by Mr. Coy, seconded by Ms. Sabata. Mr. Coy,
Yes.
Sabata,
Yes.
Mr. Muzakio,
Yes.
Ms. Greiger,
Yes.
and Ms. Watson.
Yes.
5 yeas, we are adjourned.